Declan Rice to hit it. Declan Rice scores! Stunning from Declan Rice! It's going to be Rice, and he's done it again! Oh my word! Declan Rice has been one into the top corner and doubled Arsenal's lead! Into Mikel Merino! Arsenal are a third! Arsenal are in dreamland! And it's a Spaniard, Mikel Merino, who finds the bottom corner! Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0! You wouldn't believe it!
Yep, I lost my shit while working last night, and I'm not even ashamed of it. Arsenal thump Real Madrid at the Emirates Stadium, beating Los Blancos by 3-0 to set ourselves up very, very nicely for the second leg. Before we wax lyrical about Arsenal's incredible performance, before we break off to do our player ratings on the Patreon side of things, let's just say it's half time. And it's really, really important to emphasize that, because if there's one club and one place in the world where magic like that could happen, and I know people are going to pull out all sorts of stats and say, well, they've never done it before, they've never overturned that kind of deficit before, it's Real bloody Madrid, so hold your horses. However, that does not mean that we shouldn't enjoy what we witnessed last night. That does not mean that we shouldn't be smiling from ear to ear this morning as we reflect on a magical night in N5. Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0. Let's get into it on today's episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the show. Wow. I mean, just what a night. What a night. It's kind of a problem when your job is to talk about something and you're struggling to find the words. And I hopped onto the sort of Radio 5 live show yesterday from inside the stadium, maybe 10-15 minutes after the full-time whistle, and I just did not know what to say. And it's not often that I'm lost for words, but I very much was last night, because it was just an unbelievable showing, an unbelievable display. The performance was as close to perfect as you can realistically expect. And Arsenal have themselves a really strong lead going into the second leg. Look, this is going to be a bumper edition of the podcast. You know, we're going to break it all down. We've got so much to get into, and I can't wait. I do want to say some hellos, though, because there are loads of you in the chat. Lots of you have been really patiently waiting, etc. It's been amazing. Big hello to James D, who says, what a night. The boys done us proud, and boy, am I feeling rough today. Mate, I feel exhausted. Like, I feel mentally, and not just mentally and emotionally, but physically exhausted as well, as if I played the game. Like, that's the toll it takes on you when you're invested, right? Big hello to Afsar, who says, morning, Harry and all the Gooners. We've got Tom. We've got Jid, who says, let last night not paper over the Kivior agenda. We hardly lose with him in the squad, and we have to keep on pretending that we're just not too sure about how he deputizes. Jid leaping to the defense of Jakub Kivior. I'm going to favorite that, and we'll come back to talk about Jakub Kivior a little bit later on. We've got the boss. We've got not my wife, as in someone with a screen name, the boss. We've got Steve. We've got John Daly in the chat as well. Imran Westbird. Aaron talks Arsenal. We've got Leroy Jr. Gunner. We've got Rob as well in the chat. Sammers is with us. Sadiq is with us. There's so many of you with us. If I keep reading names, I'll do nothing else. A big good morning to every single one of you that is with us. Rob says, Harry, you want to join me, Lee, and the guys for lunch in Madrid next Wednesday? Mate, drop me a DM and I'll get in contact for sure. As long as I don't have a work commitment, I'm all over it. Let's do it. It'll be great to see everyone out in Madrid. Let's do it. David Bentley says, long time, I don't think it's the David Bentley, right? Long time listener, first time live. What a game. Come on, you Gunners. Pap says, what a result. Worry about Odegaard's form, though. Did he play? We'll get into that. We'll break that all down as we go through the show. Look, there are loads and loads of you watching, which makes me proud. And, you know, it's great enough that we've got this result to kind of reflect on. But to have so many of you guys tuned in so early on a Wednesday morning after a night like that is just incredible as well. If I could please ask, if you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video. subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And if you're listening to us via Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do leave us a review. That stuff really, really does help. And David says, no, not the David Bentley, but I do look a bit like him. I'm glad you're not the David Bentley because he went to Spurs, didn't he? Not a big fan. Anyway, okay, let's... should we start with the team selection? I think that's a good place to start because, you know, we were debating, weren't we, in the lead up to this game about who plays in that back line. I think we were all quietly confident that Bukayo Saka was going to be past fit to start, and that was obviously how it went. The big kind of talking point, the big discussion and the big debate was, what does Mikel Arteta do in the heart of the defense in the absence of Gabriel? And I'm going to hold my hands up and say, I didn't want to see Jakub Kiwior anywhere near the starting 11. I didn't. Not because I dislike him, not because I don't think he's a decent defender, but I genuinely felt that if both White and Timber were fit and available, they're both ahead of him in terms of quality. And I would have felt more comfortable, certainly going into the game, with the idea of playing maybe Timber at left centre-back and White at right-back, or maybe moving Saliba over and putting Ben White at right centre-back. Anyway, basically, I wanted Timber and White to both start. And I didn't really want to see Jakub Kiwior in the starting 11. Again, it's not personal. I just don't rate him as highly as I rate those two guys. But when I got to the ground and sort of got an inkling of what the team news was and started to understand how the team was going to look, and then I started to think about some of Ben White's recent showings. And I know he's come back from a long-term injury, but it's fair to say that Ben White isn't at his peak physical condition. He's quite a way off of that. And I think that's probably what tipped the balance in the end in Jakub Kiwior's favour. You know, he's playing. He got the Man of the Match award at Everton at the weekend. You're probably looking at that and thinking, okay, like he's in a much better position mentally off the back of that to help us. And so Mikel Arteta rolled the dice and went with Jakub Kiwior. Did he have a couple of hairy moments in the game? Certainly in the first half, there were a couple of moments, a couple of short passes that really worried me, concerned me. You always feared what would happen if Kylian Mbappe went and sort of plonked himself over on that side. And he did it on a couple of occasions, and they had joy on a couple of occasions. But credit to Jakub Kiwior, because he got that little bit of the rub of the green that you need when you make a mistake sometimes. And he seemed to grow into the game. I thought Arsenal did a wonderful job of protecting him. I think playing left centre-back in this team is really, really demanding because of what we do with our left-back, right? You push Miles Lewis-Skelly into the midfield as we did yesterday. You get him driving up the pitch. It does then create a much bigger space for the left centre-back to have to marshal and control. And I thought, as I say, I thought we protected Jakub Kiwior really well on the whole, but he had a really good game after a shaky start. And you've got to give him his credit. Do I think he's a top centre-half, and do I think he should be playing every week? Do I feel as comfortable when he plays as I do when Gabriel does? No, but take nothing away from what he delivered last night. And Mikel Arteta was very, very quick to highlight that in his press conference as well. So we lined up with Raya in goal. The back four was made up of Timber, Saliba, Kiwior, and Lewis-Skelly. Midfield was Odegaard, Partey, and Rice. And then Saka started on the right-hand side. Gabriel Martinelli played on the left. And Mikel Merino started at centre-forward. Now, I'll be honest. I was sort of, and I think I said it in the preview show, I was of the opinion that Leandro Trossard should start this. Leandro Trossard should start this game in attack. I thought that was the best way to go pre-game. Clearly, I was wrong. Mikel Merino worked incredibly hard. He worked tirelessly. He had to drop deep at times to get on the ball a little bit more. Was he massively effective in terms of his all-round game? I think you'd argue no, but he scored again. And it was a sublime finish. And everybody's talking about Declan Rice's free kicks, which we'll get onto. And they're absolutely within their rights to do that because they were stunning, stunning goals. But please do not overlook the quality of Mikel Merino's finish. To take that on the way he did and to find the bottom corner the way he did, just truly superb. Again, we'll come on to those specifics a little bit later on. You looked at the Arsenal bench yesterday. There were options there for us in terms of certain areas. Leandro Trossard was always going to help in an attacking sense if we needed him to. Ethan Nwaneri there as well. In midfield, we had Jorginho as an option. Ben White was on the bench. Zinchenko there if you wanted something a little bit different. The young Tommy Setford on the bench. Nathan Butler-Oyedeji, who I'd watched the night before for the under-21s, was on the bench, as was Jimmy Gower. And good old trusty Kieran Tierney, who got on the pitch in the end. Again, we'll come on to that a little bit later on. But I looked at that Real Madrid team. I'm not going to lie. I'd sort of convinced myself during the day that, we've got a great chance and let's go there and let's give it to them and let's see where we end up. And then you turn up and you see the lineup and you see the names Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Bellingham, Modric, Rodrigo. And you just think, bloody hell, what are we up against here tonight? But in hindsight, looking back now, we managed every single one of them really, really well. Now, people like Kylian Mbappe, there's only so long that you can kind of keep them in their box for. And he did have his moments in the first half where, for me, he looked like a FIFA player. Like the way he was just kind of breaking free of his man, dribbling through one or two, the way he'd carry the ball, the way people would bounce off of him when they went into the challenge with him. I just thought he was fantastic. And I was worried about him throughout. But, you always have that fear with this Real Madrid side that they only need a moment. And so even when you go 1-0 up, even when you go 2-0 up, there's a part of you that's really, really wary. Then you get the third and you just think this is not the stuffing out of Real Madrid. Again, they'll be up for it in the second leg. They will go again. That's what Real Madrid do, right? So it's not a foregone conclusion that we're through. It's not done and dusted. Complacency cannot be allowed to creep into the mindset of us as fans, and certainly not the players and the coaching stuff. I'm sure with them, they're going to make sure that doesn't happen. For us as fans, we've got to be really, really careful not to get sucked into that trap. We're in a great position. Enjoy it. It's brilliant. It's amazing. A phenomenal night. Atmosphere like I've never experienced at Emirates Stadium. I think that was coming across in all the videos, in the TV coverage, etc., for those that weren't lucky enough to be there. But just all round an unbelievable night. I want to start off by talking more so about the first half, because I think the first half was really interesting. I know we did the damage in the second half, and I know that that's what the focus will be on. It was a really dominant second half performance from Arsenal. But I thought we managed the first half brilliantly. And why am I going on about the first half, in which we created a couple of bits and pieces, maybe looked a little bit vulnerable on the transition on a couple of occasions, but generally the second half was far superior. I think the first half was really important in shaping the way that the rest of this game went. And I want to share my screen with you. I'm going to get the old trusty tactics board out. So if you're listening on audio, I will explain as best as I possibly can. But if you want to come over to the YouTube video to have the benefit of seeing the visuals, then feel free to do so. Arsenal set up against what looked like out of possession, a 4-4-2 from Real Madrid. That's what they were setting up with, out of possession. At times it would change a little bit. At times you'd see Mbappe go into a more central area. You'd see Rodrigo go out to the right. And sometimes it looked like they were playing with a flat midfield five in order to just get behind the ball and make life difficult for us. We talked in the build-up to this game about how difficult it is to sort of get your head right against Real Madrid because first of all, we as a team, naturally, we want to squeeze up on people. That's how we impose ourselves, right? We bring the line really high up. We squeeze you into your own half. We go super aggressive. We move the ball with zip and tempo. This is ideal world, right? This is what Arsenal do in ideal solutions. We squeeze you up. We ping the ball really quickly. We win our duels. We're physical. We're powerful. We're directing our running, etc., etc. That's what we want to do. That's what our natural inclination is because of the way that this team has been built. In recent times, we haven't always been able to do that. And that's been because we faced low blocks, generally speaking. But the difference between facing Real Madrid and most other teams in world football is that when you face Real Madrid's low block, you're really nervous and concerned about what they can produce, even from deep, and how they can expose the spaces in behind you. When you play, with all due respect, a lower-end Premier League team that have come there to park the bus, you see their threat as manageable, particularly when you've got Gabriel and Saliba there, and you've got your kind of land of the Giants defense and Declan Rice and Thomas Partey in the team. Generally, you feel like you can handle that. Against Real Madrid, though, it's not the case. You know that someone like Luka Modric can drop into the position between the two centre-backs, which he did very often yesterday. And if you squeeze too high up, he can put a ball into a space and release an Mbappe or a Vinicius or a Rodrigo, who all have incredible pace, and even the very best defenders are going to struggle to contain those guys. And so what was fascinating to me about Arsenal's first half performance, and I talked about this when we played against Manchester City on a few occasions in recent times as well. What really kind of impressed me was the balance in our game. We were willing to get our foot on the ball and try and dictate the thing as much as we possibly could. We were willing to push our defense up to kind of just shy of the halfway line, but we had a cutoff point. We knew very clearly that, yes, we wanted to go searching and we wanted to go pressing, but we knew that we were leaving space in behind. We knew that that was a risk. And the space that we allowed in behind us for Real Madrid to potentially expose, it needed to be small enough, and it needed to be an area the size that allowed David Raya to come out and control it. Now, David Raya is as good a sweeper keeper as you're going to find. He's fantastic on the ball. There was an instance in the second half where the ball came to him under pressure on his weaker foot. And rather than just lumping it long, he plays this sublime pass out to the left-hand side and finds Leandro Trossard. David Raya is as good as you're going to find at that. Okay, that's why he took the position from Aaron Ramsdale. That's why he's Arsenal's number one. And that's why he's been incredible. But so for me, it was the balance. It was knowing when to press, when to be aggressive. It was understanding how to play through Real Madrid's lines. And one of the key ways in which we'd done that, and bear with me, I'll just remove this from the screen. One of the key ways in which we'd done that was we'd push Odegaard and Rice, our 2-8s on, and we'd bring Lewis Skelly in. Lewis Skelly would come into those areas alongside Thomas Partey. He'd receive the ball. Real Madrid would, of course, look to try and close him down. Lewis Skelly going into that position would draw out one or two of the Real Madrid midfielders. And he had that brilliance and that ability to just receive it on the half turn and either play it through to someone or go on a run and carry it. And it was just incredible to see a guy of that age literally go into a game like that against Real Madrid and just look completely fearless. And I'll be honest, hands held up. I was a little bit concerned about the prospect of Lewis Skelly playing in this game alongside Kivior. I felt the two of them as a pairing could be a potential weakness for us because there isn't that same experience and that same physicality, but at least on Kivior's part. But Lewis Skelly coming into the midfield, he played that role to perfection. And that was key in us breaking the Real Madrid lines on the few occasions in the first half that we managed to get in behind and cause problems. You break the first line, you get the ball out to Saka, you get the ball out to Martinelli, and you try and hurt them from the wide areas. And maybe at halftime, my feeling was, if only we had that striker when we flashed a couple of balls across the face of the 6-yard box and no one was there to turn them in. I did feel, that was a frustration of the first half. But Lewis Skelly was key in breaking their lines. And because Arsenal did not concede too much space in behind, because their press was measured, because it was aggression at the right times, Real Madrid really did struggle to lay much of a glove on us. Did they have a good chance? They did. Mbappe forced a save out of David Raya in the first period. But other than that, we managed them so well. And this is where I talk about maturity. This is where I talk about the development of this team. And it's very easy to look at the Premier League table this season to forget about the problems we've had, the injuries, etc., and to go, Arsenal have regressed. Well, maybe in some ways their underperformance this season can be explained, and it can, injuries, refereeing decisions. I think all of that stuff is relevant in the conversation and in the discussion. But it was a night like last night where I looked at this team and I was thinking, show me that you've grown up. You showed us last season in the way that we competed with City and some of the other best teams in this country. We fell a little bit short against Bayern Munich because I think the occasion ate us up. So it was kind of like, well, show us tonight. Show us tonight that you've grown up. Show us tonight that you have learned from Bayern last season, where we gave them cheap, soft goals and gave ourselves a really difficult task in the second leg. And Arsenal did exactly that. And that's the most impressive thing about this group, this coach, this team. We are learning all the time. And so when people go, oh, well, Arsenal didn't win the league the first season that they were competitive for it under Mikel Arteta. What a chance missed. They're never going to get a better chance. And then the following season, everybody said the same thing. And we finished second, this time much closer to Manchester City. Okay, we've missed the opportunity to do that this year. But when I hear people go, well, next season, Arsenal going to start regressing. There's no way they can maintain this again. I call bullshit. And I call bullshit because this team constantly show us, if you look properly, if you analyze properly, this team are constantly showing us that they're growing up, they're developing, and they're evolving. And last night was another great example of that. So we go in at the break and it's 0-0, and I'm sort of quietly content with the performance that we've seen. Listen, before the game, I said it to you guys, I'd have taken a 0-0 draw all day long. 100%. I'd have taken the 0-0 draw, and we take that to Madrid and we see how we go. Second half started very similar, I thought, to the first half. Only Arsenal had just injected a little bit more tempo into their game, I felt anyway. And Bukayo Saka again causing a nuisance down that right-hand side. Important to note, by the way, because some people were saying on the way out of the stadium that, Saka was good, but, you can tell that he's not quite at his best. I think you can tell that he's not quite physically where he wants to be. But his impact, just incredible. Don't underestimate it. Everything dangerous Arsenal did in the first half, or most of it, came from the right-hand side, where he was beating David Alaba, a very seasoned and experienced and quick defender, and making him look really, really silly, cutting the ball back across. And then, you see what happens. Then you end up with a situation where, the second half starts and Real Madrid are retreating. I felt like Real Madrid were a little bit rattled by our attacking play at the end of the first half. And it's mad to say, like, an experienced, unbelievable side like Real Madrid would sort of be rattled or would be wilting in any way, shape or form. But, they did look like they were up against the ropes. And you felt like naturally that led to them just regressing a little bit and dropping that bit deeper in the second half. So what does Saka do on the right-hand side? He gets the ball and he drifts in field and he carries. Ball carriers are so important in football in terms of creating spaces, in terms of committing people, in terms of winning free kicks. And he wins the free kick. And that's where the pandemonium and all the rest of it began. We're going to take a really short pause, and then we're going to continue to break down that incredible night against Real Madrid. Short pause. Don't go anywhere. What do you want to hear for the pause? Do you want to hear a like and subscribe plug, or do you want to hear the commentary for the goals again, or the screaming for the goals? I think we'll go with the goals, shall we? Let's do it. I'm going to play it over and over again. Sorry, I don't care. But I told you guys I literally lost my shit at work, and I did. And I'm not even ashamed.
Declan Rice to hit it. Declan Rice scores! Stunning from Declan Rice! It's going to be Rice, and he's done it again! Oh my word! Declan Rice has been one into the top corner and doubled Arsenal's lead! Into Mikel Merino! Arsenal are a third! Arsenal are in dreamland! And it's a Spaniard, Mikel Merino, who finds the bottom corner! Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0! You wouldn't believe it!
Yep, Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0, and we've been running through the game so far. We've got up to the point where Bukayo Saka wins the free kick, and there's been a lot of chat about what Nicolas Jova was asking for from Declan Rice, etc., etc. I swear to God, ask Tom Canton. We were sitting next to each other, Tom Canton of the Gooner Talk. We were sitting next to each other in the press box, and just before that free kick was taken, I said to Tom, this is going in. Swear to God. I said, this is going in. And boom. Up steps Declan Rice. And to whip the ball in the way he did from that distance, with that power, with that velocity on the strike, is just mind-blowing. In fact, I'm going to bring up the highlights. I know I can't show you the highlights for copyright reasons. But I just want to show you the still that kind of, really captures where Declan Rice strikes it from in terms of the hold on a minute. Before I do that, Keith Bird says, TC said he said that to you. No way. Did he say that? I said that. And I even said I told you after the goal went in. Come on, Tom. Surely. Or did he say that I said it? Oh, he said that I said it. Okay, cool. I was gonna say, you're trying to wind me up. What has to happen surely now is that me and Tom have to sit next to each other in all big games. I think that's the only way. I think we should start a petition and make sure that Arsenal do that. But look, let me just show you this screenshot. Hold on, from Declan Rice approaching that free kick. 1 second. Here we go. Bend it like Rice is the headline. Just incredible, isn't it? Just incredible. There you go. Look at that, right? So, first of all, the fact that Real Madrid only go with a 4-man wall there, it kind of tells you everything you need to know about what their expectation was around this free kick. They've put Valverde, I think it is. Is it Valverde on the right of the wall? Is that him, number 8, or is it Asensio? Not sure. But either way, look, that wall, okay, it protects that side of the goal. And it's well positioned. But, it's a 4-man wall where I don't think Real Madrid or Thibaut Courtois are expecting anything to come from it. They're set up thinking, Declan Rice. Declan Rice, come on. When's Declan Rice ever scored a free kick before? And boom, he hits it. Let me just take this on ever so slightly. And here's where you kind of really get a feel for how amazing this free kick was. Look how far wide of the post he sets it out. Look at the swivel on the upper body to kind of get that whip on the ball. And it's at this really awkward height for Thibaut Courtois, because if it's higher, he might get a little bit more time to kind of get across. But because it's like this height that's kind of awkward and then it dips right at the last minute, he just finds it impossible to get to. You can also see, if you look at this really, really carefully, as Rice has just struck the ball, look at it from this reverse angle, right? Thibaut Courtois leaning to his right. He's leaning to his right to try and see what Declan Rice is going to do. Visibility for Courtois here is a problem. And that split second of hesitation and leaning to his right to kind of try and see what's going on, I mean, I don't think he would have saved it anyway, but it gives him zero chance, doesn't it? And so take nothing away from Declan Rice, because this is an outstanding free kick. But Real Madrid get that wall badly wrong. Badly wrong. I mean, it's still something, isn't it, to curl it from that far wide and back in, and for it to creep just inside the post almost perfectly. It's as wide in the goal as it could possibly be, which makes it impossible. But just honestly, wonderful moment, wonderful scenes. And I mean, I screamed my head off. I literally screamed my head off. And I remember after the goal thinking, shit, that wasn't very professional, was it? Wasn't very professional, but who cares? Who cares? No one else seemed to mind. Hey, who doesn't enjoy screaming over a goal is what I'd say. Arsenal obviously then got the second free kick, but it wasn't before Arsenal had some more chances. Gabriel Martinelli shot from the angle, beaten away by Courtois. Merino hit it, cleared off the line. It came back to him. He took it under control and he rifled it back at Thibaut Courtois, who tipped it over the crossbar. The scary thing about last night is that Arsenal forced Thibaut Courtois into so many great saves and still scored 3. That in itself signals and signifies the dominance that the Gunners showed on the night. Arsenal then get another free kick. And again, who's the one that wins it? Yep, Bukayo Saka. And Declan Rice steps up, and with a very, very similar technique and body shape, he curls it, this time on the goalkeeper's side. And it's as top bins as you can get. It's literally as top bins as you could ever hope for. And Courtois, even being on the right side, just can't keep it out, because, again, he sets it wide of the post and he bends it in, and it's got the accuracy, the velocity, the speed, the power, everything that a goalkeeper fears. Declan Rice put it into those free kicks. And it's mystifying to me, A, how he's never scored one before, and B, why he's not been taking them more often for Arsenal. We know that he's obviously, taking corners and various other set pieces, and we know that, he's been great at doing that, and he's been a real part of our weaponry, which is amazing. But yeah, I mean, this was just unbelievable. And the scenes were just incredible. And I mean, I'm getting texts now from people even about it, and like, I'm getting texts, can you do this today? Can you do that today? And like, I woke up this morning exhausted, right? Because I went to bed at some ungodly hour, probably like 2 a.m. or something. And I've got up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do a breakfast show. And I've done another show straight after that. And then, we're doing the podcast today, and I've got podcasts to come later on in the day. And like, it's just, you're feeding off of energy that is created by a sport, by a football match, by an atmosphere in the stadium. And that's what football can do to you, right? It's just incredible. I just want to bring you one of those angles again, this time for the Rice free kick, just to, again, show you how sort of wide he's bent it from. Look at this again. Look at this. For those of you watching on YouTube, it's well wide of the far post, and it bends back in and into the top corner. If I take it on a little bit, I think we might just get away with it. Hold on. Just gone a little bit too far there. Hold on. Look at it from here. Not allowed to. It's so annoying that I can't show you the goal. 1 second. Let's just take it on a little bit so you can just see Courtois as well, because he gets nowhere bloody near it. Look how far away from it Thibaut Courtois is when it hits the net. He can't get anywhere near it. It's just an outstanding free kick from Declan Rice. Just wonderful. Magical is how I describe it. I know it sounds like my analysis is really, really basic today, because I'm just waxing lyrical. I haven't really processed what I saw. I'll probably watch the game back in full a little bit later on today. I've already watched it back once, and I'll probably come up with some more tactical insight and some more smarter sounding points. But right now, it's just awe. It's absolute awe of what we've watched and what we've witnessed from the team. Let's take it on to the Mikel Merino goal then as well, because this is a really fantastic goal. And this is such a good goal. It's gone under the radar. People are talking about Declan Rice's outstanding free kicks, and rightly so. You absolutely should be, because they are worldies. Take nothing away, though, from Mikel Merino. We talked about him the other day on the pod, and we talked about the fact that even though he's not centre forward, even though it's not the ideal solution, even though we're all kind of sitting here going, it's not really the way we want to go. And, we've lost Havertz and we've lost Jesus, and we were all incredibly frustrated at the club for not going out and getting a centre forward, myself included. It's impossible to deny that Merino's had an unbelievable impact in terms of goal scoring. I think it impacts our all-round game. And I think our all-round game suffers a little bit from the fact that we don't have a natural striker that has a certain skill set. But Mikel said it before, Mikel Arteta, that is, we've had to adapt and adjust our game to play to his strengths, because it's no good putting him there and saying, right, you've got to do what Kai Havertz does, or you've got to do what Gabriel Jesus does, because he's not them. He is a different profile. He's a different player. He's going to have a different skill set. And so it's on the team as well to support him. He's done a selfless thing going up front and playing a position that, is alien to him. And there was every chance that it would backfire miserably. And Mikel Merino, who, if we're being honest, I think there were doubts about prior to this stint at centre forward, might have found himself falling down in terms of the fans' opinion even more as a result of this experiment failing. He hasn't been worried by that. He hasn't been concerned by that. He's just simply got on with it, and he's scoring goals for fun at the moment. Check this screenshot out of the lead up to Merino's goal, right? So he's on the penalty spot, and he makes a move back towards the edge of the penalty area to peel off his man to create that bit of space for him. And Miles Lewis-Skelly's pass is obviously, people will say it's not a great pass, but Miles Lewis-Skelly's clever here because he sees Mikel Merino's momentum. Mikel Merino's momentum is bringing him back towards the edge of the penalty area. It's no good playing the ball in front of him. you're also giving the defender a chance. I think it's Camavinga there to step out and intercept it. If you do that, you have to play the ball into the sweet spot, which is far enough back for Mikel Merino to be able to completely peel off the Real Madrid men and have enough space to do whatever it is that he pleases with it. But it also has to be sort of at an angle that allows Mikel Merino to make something of it with his first touch. And that's the beauty of this pass from Miles Lewis-Skelly. So if I take it on ever so slightly, by the time he receives the ball, Lewis-Skelly's played the ball essentially almost square to the edge of the box. Look where Merino is. Look how quickly Mikel Merino has got himself back to the edge of the box and reshaped his body so that he's in a position to take the shot on first time. And obviously he lets fly left-footed, low, hard into the bottom right-hand corner. It's just a stunning goal. It really, really is. And Declan Rice gets all the plaudits. Rightly so. Unbelievable goals from him. But my God, Mikel Merino is having some impact, isn't he, as well, at centre forward. And it's just incredible. We are going to do our player ratings over on Patreon as well very, very shortly. So if you are not a patron of the Chronicles of a Gooner and you'd like to support me to bring you daily content around the Arsenal, we're going to be bringing you so much from Madrid as well. I can't wait to get out there. Then please do visit the link in the description, patreon.com/the Chronicles of a Gooner. Sign up and you're going to get player ratings as an addition to every one of these post-match podcasts that we do. And there's a lot to say off the back of last night's game, but there's a few performances I do want to highlight here on the main pod. Before I do that, quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're brand spanking new. That really, really does help. And if you are listening on audio, whether that's Spotify or Apple, please do leave us a review on those platforms as well. That is very, very much appreciated. Really, really short pause. When we come back, we'll go through some individual performances because there was a lot to call out, wasn't there? There was a lot to be happy about. Let's get into that very, very soon.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
There you go. Make sure you're liking the video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, to the podcast on whatever platform it is that you prefer. Right. Okay. Let's do some individual performances. As I said, we're going to do Patreon player ratings very shortly after we finish here. So that'll be available to you 15, 20 minutes after we finish this live stream. But there's a few players that I think specifically deserve calling out. I think that Lewis-Skelly was just immense. Mature, switched on defensively, played the game exactly the way that Mikel Arteta would have wanted him to, played the inverted fullback role to perfection, used his body, used his physicality, used his ability to protect the ball to really, really good effect for Arsenal. And just the guy's just grown up so fast. It's incredible to see. And buzzing with what he's managed. And the thing is, right, we paid good money for Alexander Zinchenko a few seasons back. We paid money to bring in Ricardo Calafiori in the summer. And Miles Lewis-Skelly has made that position his own. And I know there have been other reasons for that. I know injuries have opened the door to Miles Lewis-Skelly and he's managed to sneak in through the door. But you know what? You got to stay in the room. You got to stay there. You got to remain, as the go-to. And he is literally the go-to now. There's been times with Miles Lewis-Skelly in recent months where I thought his performances were great. And then he maybe gets sucked into something that he didn't need to. Like the sending off against West Ham, he sat on the ball for too long. He got his pocket picked and then he commits a foul and he ends up getting sent off. I worried that he was starting to develop a bit of a reputation that was giving a subconscious bias to officials around him. Then he goes on England duty and he scores. And you're thinking, bloody hell, this kid's got balls. And then you're looking at him last night and you're thinking, this is Real Madrid, son. Can you keep your cool? Can you keep your composure? Can you show that you can mix it with not just the best at Arsenal, but the best in world football? And he's done exactly that. Just a really outstanding performance. William Saliba as well. I want to give William Saliba the props that he deserves, because he's had to adapt. He's had to adjust to having Jakub Kiwior alongside him versus Gabriel. It's different. It's very, very different. One of the reasons that Saliba and Gabriel work so well as a partnership is because they complement each other's games in a lot of ways. Gabriel is that big, powerful enforcer, the aggressor. Saliba's not really that. Saliba's the tidier one, the Rolls Royce, the one that cleans up, if you like. And with Kiwior next to him, he's had to be more of the aggressor. He's had to change a little bit because Kiwior, I don't think physically is as dominating as Saliba or Gabriel. And so Saliba has to take on that role. And it's meant an adjustment to his game, which again, he's done really, really well. Thomas Partey was effing phenomenal last night in every phase of the game. Defensively, intercepting passes, breaking play up, running back towards his own goal with people that you'd expect to roast him on any other day, keeping up with them, making the tackles at the right time. He was a brick wall in front of that Arsenal defense yesterday. And we talked a lot about Kiwior earlier on. Kiwior had some shaky moments, but grew into the game and developed. In part, he was able to play the way he was because Arsenal's midfield protected him brilliantly, and Thomas Partey was a massive part of that. We've talked Declan Rice in the free kicks. His game generally was outstanding. I think if we're going to be a little bit negative, and I feel like, for the purpose of balance, we've got to be fair. I don't think that Martin Odegaard was at the races again, which was a worry and a concern. But listen, that's why it's a team game, right? When some of your players aren't really at the races, you need the others to step up and rally around them. And that's exactly what happened. I thought Martinelli was good and energetic, not quite as effective as I'd have thought he would have been going into the game. I thought Real Madrid would mark the shit out of Bukayo Saka, and that would mean that we'd have to go down the left a little bit more. I thought with Lewis Skelly inverting, Martinelli would pull wider, and he did do that, but we didn't get the ball out as early to him as I would have liked at times in the first half especially. But again, tireless worker. And there was a point in the second half, I think when we were 2-0 up, where Miles Lewis-Skelly had gone roaming, and I looked up and I thought, shit, we're in trouble here. And Martinelli was at left back. Like, his defensive awareness is just incredible. And I really do believe that's a big part of the reason that Mikel prefers him over Leandro Trossard when both are fit and available, because he gives you everything. His game is all-encompassing. Is it true that he's not quite as potent as you'd like him to be in the final third? I think that's fair to say. But he makes up for that in other ways. He makes up for it in the fact that he's always going to give you the work. And it's kind of the same argument I always make in defense of Martin Odegaard, right? The thing with these players, the thing with this team is the togetherness, the work rate, and that they all take responsibility for what their duties are, even when it's not going their way. The minimum you get out of them is that. And that's really, really powerful and really, really important. Look, we're going to take a short pause, and then we're going to take some of your questions and some of your thoughts from the live chat. There's a few on social media that we're going to pick up as well that have been coming to me over the course of the night. But really short pause, and we'll be back to do that in the final part of today's Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Come on, you Gunners. All right, I'm going to start with some of the questions that have come through to me on X, which will give you guys a chance in the live chat, whether that's on YouTube or if you're watching us on the live stream on X right now, to get involved and get your questions in. So this is one. Guna State of Mind says, Harry, who would you prefer that we get in the semi-finals, PSG or Aston Villa? Let me just stress that we're not in the semi-finals yet. I have to say that, because Real Madrid are an incredible side full of unbelievable talent. And at the Bernabeu, you just never know. Okay, it's not a foregone conclusion that we're through. Have we got a great chance now? Absolutely. Have we done the bulk of the work, you feel? Yes. But you never know. It's never over till it's over. Certainly not against them. So having said all of that, who would I prefer, PSG or Aston Villa? I've been blown away by PSG this season. Not this season, that's wrong. In the second half of the season. Because I think they've played an unbelievable brand of football. They were a joy to watch against Liverpool in both legs. They've won Ligue 1 already, which means that their focus is solely on this competition. And so in theory, they are certainly the more difficult opponent. In theory, they're the ones that you don't want. You prefer Aston Villa. But it's just that flipping Unai Emery factor that makes me not want Aston Villa. You know, we've been undone by him in a European semi-final before. We've got that ongoing narrative, you know, should he have been given more time? The answer is absolutely fucking not. But there's still people that peddle that even today. And it's that factor that makes me lean towards PSG, I think, even though I think they're the better team. So that makes no sense, right? Logically, it makes no sense. But it's just this Unai Emery thing. And listen, I am going to have a little bit of a go at some of our supporters today. I am. You know, people will say, I have no right to. I have every right to say whatever the hell I want to say on my podcast, right? If you don't like it, tough. It's funny how so many of those accounts that pop up when we lose a game or when they want to moan are nowhere to be seen today. Where are you? You tune in every single other day and you keep going, yap, 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 and you got loads to say. Today, they're gone. Can't see any of them. It amazes me that some of Mikel Arteta's critics have just flat out refused to give him any credit for what we witnessed last night. Yes, Declan Rice produced 2 moments of brilliance. Yes, Mikel Merino too. But there's so much about this team that comes from the manager. The structure, the psychology of taking on Real Madrid, the emphasis on the connection between the players and the fans that in part generated that incredible atmosphere yesterday that certainly helped and impacted us. How can you deny that Mikel Arteta's played a massive role and a massive part in this? What's wrong with you people? And my worry about facing Villa potentially and Unai Emery again is that you'd be given oxygen should we end up getting knocked out or struggling. To those idiots that want to have a go at Mikel Arteta, you'd be giving them oxygen and you'd be giving them a reason to talk up a manager that at the irony of it all is that they also wanted out at the time that he was sacked from Arsenal. There are people out there, big content creators as well, that are so anti-Mikel Arteta that they'll refuse to give him credit for anything, regardless of what they watch, regardless of what happens. And to add the Unai Emery thing to the mix would just make a potential exit unbearable. And so I think I'd rather play PSG on that basis. Let me know your thoughts as well. Let's go back to some of your questions on X. I promise I'll pick up some from the live chat as well. So keep getting them in. Diogene says, how do you deal with yellow carded midfielders in the return leg? And he also asks, what do you think about Kivior? I've touched on Kivior already in his performance and how he grew into it, and fair play to him. So I'm not going to repeat that. But how do you deal with yellow carded midfielders? As in our own, I assume you're talking about. I think you just got to go out and play your game. I don't think you can afford to obsess over, the potential of someone picking up a yellow card. Does it play on the player's mind? I think it does. And yeah, it is what it is. But over the years, I've seen so many top teams lose players in the latter stages of this competition due to suspensions, and it's just part of the way it goes. I wouldn't say to sort of Rice, go out there and half-arse it because you're on a yellow card. Do you know what I mean? I want a fully committed performance from these players, and I want them to give their absolute all and everything. And I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was Rice, Martinelli, and Timber, was it, going into the game yesterday, that were on yellow cards. Yeah, like you can't half-arse it. You can't plant that seed in their minds. You can't put them in a position where they're doubting themselves and questioning what the right thing is to do. They've got to go out there and play their natural game. Okay, we'll take one more from X and then we'll come over to the YouTube chat box. Keep them coming. John says, can we win it, Harry? Yes, we bloody can. Yes, we can. We can. Will we? Another question. Don't know. But can we? Yes, we can. Ken Spaceburger says, can we get the audio of you losing your shit? You've had it a couple of times already. Maybe we'll sign off with it. Maybe we'll sign off with it at the end again. If that's what the people want, that's what the people will get. Okay, let's take some questions from here. Keith Bird says, was it a penalty in the first half. We had a very similar situation against Inter. Look, if you're talking about consistency, then you can make the argument because of the one that we conceded at San Siro. But I thought the one we conceded at San Siro was bullshit, to be honest. And so I'd be a hypocrite now if I sat there and said we deserved a penalty. I saw it the first time around, and instantly I said he's too close. His arm's not out. Like if it had hit his other arm, different story. But I don't think you can give a penalty for that in a game of this magnitude. And I'm glad that they didn't. I thought the referee, I'm normally really sort of positive about UEFA officials. I thought this referee in the first half was shocking. He gave them absolutely bloody everything. He seemed to become a little bit more balanced as the game went on, I felt. That's the fan in me talking. But yeah, I mean, look, going back to that penalty thing, the ball went out of play for a corner. There was a very, very short pause before the corner was taken for them to have a quick look at it. Really efficient. Bang, not a penalty. Let's get on with it. Let's move on. There was a question of offside in Arsenal's... Which goal was it? Was it the third one, I think? There was a question of offside. Leandro Trossard. Semi-automated offsides, mate. 10 seconds, done. Sorted. Onside, no problem. Yeah, yeah. The standard of officiating, although I had my little moan, it's just far, far better, isn't it? In European competition, and that makes a mockery of the Premier League because it shows you that actually, if you want to get it right, you can get it right. Afsar says, would you go ultra defensive at the Bernabeu? Play 5 at the back, then counter with pace? No, I wouldn't. I'd play a very similar game to the one that we played last night, maybe slightly more cautious than we were yesterday, but I think it's about mid blocks, not low blocks. I don't think you can afford to invite Real Madrid onto you and sink deeper and deeper. That would be a problem. And once you start a game like that, if you then concede, it's very difficult to switch out of that mode, I always find. And you can end up in a situation where the game just gets away from you. We've got to manage the game really well, but we've got to be ourselves as much as is reasonably possible. And so, no, I wouldn't start messing around and playing back fives and things like that. If you get to the last 20 and you're still 3-0 up, then maybe make that change. But I think it's about playing with a mid block. It's about trying to keep Real Madrid at arm's length and trying to control the game. Very similarly to the way that we did last night. What else have we got in the chat? Lots of you debating the playing style. Lots of you debating, how we go into that second leg. Listen, Jid wants to get his point in about Jakub Kiwior, so fair play to him. Let's do it. He says, LOL, laugh out loud. That means for the older people in the room, because there's a lot of these, what are they called? Like abbreviations that I don't know either. Saliba getting props for adjusting, but Kiwior getting nothing for coming in with limited minutes and all the pressure and doubt from the fans and doing well. Instead, there is this lie that Partey, who played more on the right, was protecting him along with others, unlike Saliba, who needed no protection, Harry. That is a toxic fan take. That's a don't want to admit being wrong take. Come on. Kiwior made errors in the first half. He did. At times in the first half, he looked shaky. Now, that doesn't mean I won't give him his credit for growing into the game and improving as the game went on, which I've already done, by the way. But we've had this debate before. Jakub Kiwior versus Gabriel, there's a drop-off. If you're denying that, you're crazy. I'm sorry. There is a drop-off. Jakub Kiwior in the past has been shaky for Arsenal. And at the start of the game yesterday, over the course of the first half, he had his moments where, again, he was shaky. Everybody that was in the press box said it. It wasn't me making it up. It's not me making it up. I don't have an agenda against Jakub Kiwior. I've given him his flowers for improving. I've given him his flowers for being part of a defense that kept a clean sheet against Real Madrid. And do I feel his confidence has been low at times? Yes. Hopefully, keeping a clean sheet against the likes of Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Bellingham, etc., will do him the world of good in that sense. But we'll give him his flowers for what he done well, but we're also not going to pretend. You're saying that we're sort of distorting the truth here. To deny that he had some shaky moments is to distort the truth as well. So, you're calling out one thing and doing the same thing, only just from the different side of the argument, as if that makes it okay. My truth is that Jakub Kiwior was shaky at points, but grew into it and developed. And props to him. Your take is that it was never in doubt. Well, it was in bloody doubt at one point. It was in doubt because he had those moments. So, yeah, look, fair play to the guy. Let's hope he gets better and better because we're going to need him. And it's clear that Mikel Arteta is in a space at this moment in time where we really trust him. Will that still be the case when he feels that Ben White's got up to speed? I don't know. We'll see. But Kivior, man of the match at Everton, and did relatively well last night. Giving them praise, yes. But don't deny Jakub Kivior's level is kind of my point because, just that is also a distortion of the truth, the very thing that you claim to be calling out. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to leave it there. I don't know what else to say other than just what a wonderful, wonderful night at Emirates Stadium. Tactically, we were perfect. Physically, we were great. Mentally, the psychology of the game, we handled it as best as you could have possibly hoped for. The atmosphere was electric. The stadium was just an amazing place to be last night. And I'm so privileged to have been able to be there and cover the game. And yeah, I can't wait for the return leg. I really, really can't wait for the trip to Madrid. And as I say, we'll be bringing you content from the Spanish capital over the course of those few days that I'm out there. Quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, can you please leave us a like on the video? If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel as well. If you're new to it, if you're listening on audio, guys, leave us a review as well. That really, really does help. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com / the Chronicles of Aguna. The link is in the description below. Come over to the Patreon side because we're going to do some in-depth player ratings, and that'll be with you in around about 15 to 20 minutes on the Patreon only feed. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one. If you want to join me over there, do come over, do sign up. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll leave you with the goals one more time. Up the Arsenal.
Declan Rice to hit it. Declan Rice scores! Stunning from Declan Rice! It's going to be Rice, and he's done it again! Oh my word! Declan Rice has been one into the top corner and doubled Arsenal's lead! Into Mikel Merino! Arsenal are in third! Arsenal are in dreamland! And it's a Spaniard, Mikel Merino, who finds the bottom corner! Arsenal 3,